The views and opinions on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate Resorts ownership or management. And now, on with the show. This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
All right, everybody, we are back here in Elvis Presley's dressing room at the Westgate Resort in Las Vegas, and we are here with TJ Reach. We're going to continue talking about. We started off his time in the Navy. We did a little bit about his timeline at Radio City Music Hall. And before we go any farther, anything else about the New York, your time in New York? And
I want to say one thing about that first show that I worked. I did all the rehearsals and dress rehearsals and tech rehearsals, you know. First time ever doing anything like that. I remember the feeling I had when that curtain went up, and chills. You know, waiting for my cue up there on the rail. You know, yeah. I have nervousness, and I had those chills that went all through my body. You know, and I said, man, this is something I think I like to do.
Yeah.
You know, so that's how I got the bug. You know, I mean, what else? What can you do that you're gonna get a feeling like that? You know, that's such a responsibility. You know, waiting for you know, you don't want to be right there. You know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's.
And no one, unless you've been in show business, and you know, all I can liken it to closely is going into. I used to play a lot of basketball and stuff back in the high school years. Going into a championship game, that feeling going into the big game or something, you know. Same thing like in show business. That oh man, here we go, you know, and to get the energy and the excitement going and stuff like that, you know, and you know. But it's also funny how soon you kind of just don't feel it after a while. You know, it's
that happened to me. You know, on big production shows and for a while.
Yeah,
you know, I get all that excitement. Maybe not quite so much with the chills like I did that first time.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, now in the last so many years, that's gone away. You know, it's become
just what we do.
Yeah.
It's not
Exactly.
it's not the
Exactly.
it's a job that we all try to do. But anyways. New York, your time on Broadway.
I just wanted, I want to also say on that fact is I've already said this once, but I wanted you to know how appreciative I was to have gotten that experience, even though I might not have learned a whole lot, but it sure did help me going on. Because anytime I, put down Radio City on my, for an interview or told them I worked at Radio City, boom. I mean, that was pretty much the end of the interview. I got hired right there, you know. When I left there, I went to Florida. I got married. I went to Florida. I got married in Florida, and I was working at USF, University of Southern Florida. Mm-hmm. They hired me as a technical advisor. Okay, what did I know about being a technical advisor? I didn't know nothing.
For the theater?
Yeah, for the theater.
Really?
Yeah, the theater department. But Radio City got me the job, you know.
There you go.
You know, so, and I wanted to get out of the cold weather and stuff, you know what I mean? So I went down to Florida and didn't pay a whole lot. That's why I left. But, again, I was.
How long were you there?
A year.
Just a year.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. You know, the professor there and the tech TD there, they both liked me for some reason, but. I got along, but, the pay wasn't, I was just one of their flunkies, and they soon found out, because I didn't know nothing. I could show them a little bit about pulling rope, but that's about it, And I did, when I was in New York, I did a few Broadways, ins and outs. I did West Side Story with Debbie Allen. She was in it, and did 42nd Street when it opened. That was a big opening there because of the big drama about, the choreographer dying right up. Opening night and stuff like that, and with David Merritt. So I was involved in that in the opening. But as soon as it came to a show, being low man on totem poles, somebody come in and, you go see so and so. That was the end of my days. But but I worked a week or 2 weeks, whatever, on the shows, helping them install it in these theaters. And
well, that is probably the most important part there because that's where you actually learn.
Yeah.
Why you're doing this? What's
carpenter work? I learned some carpenter work then. You know what I mean? I already was pretty handy because I grew up. My father always, I grew up working with tools and carpentry and stuff like that. My dad could do anything.
Yeah.
And I seen him do everything and helped him, assisted him. So I was pretty good with tools, and I had a good construction knowledge. And so yeah, I did carpenter and got hired on as a carpenter, and did a lot of pushing cases and putting the sets together and learning how they go together. And I worked also at Radio City's warehouse. I forgot about that. Yeah, and that's the only extra calls I'd ever get, from them is go down to Harlem where they had this huge 1 block long warehouse where they stored all the. It was interesting because
Is that the same place Leo was talking about?
Leo, no, that's from Leo's. It was near there.
Okay, same area.
Yeah,
though,
yeah,
same
they all.
time.
Yeah,
Why Harlem?
I think
Just
it's
because it was
rent.
cheap?
You know what I mean? It was cheap, I'm sure, because these were huge. I mean, they're like 3 floors high, and they just had like little cubicles that they stuck the sets in for these shows that they'd done for all these years. You know what I mean? Costumes on one floor, and sets on another, and technical stuff. Equipment's on the other, and they send you down there either just straighten up the place, or or pull some stuff, or put some stuff in there, and that's. That was really interesting. Just walk through the place. They should do it. They should do a tour.
Exactly.
They should do a tour through there because it is, it's quite interesting. I found it, wow, you'd see some of that stuff, way because Radio City was around for a long time. I think was it 30s or something they opened? Yeah, during the Depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Just the history. Yeah, that'd be
shows,
awesome. Yeah.
it was. But that was good. I did several. I mean, I worked sometimes a week at a time down there. We put things in there. They send stuff down. And we unloaded trucks and put it away, and we had fun in there. Yeah.
I mean, I've been told that even Radio City, the actual building, that there's so many floors in that just have massive amounts of props and costumes and on and on and on.
I don't see a whole lot of that because they had the warehouse. I mean, but I'm sure there are.
What was Max was telling me about that? Someone took him and just walked him all through the place and in like all these different rooms. And
A long time since I worked in 1980. How long is that now? 40
only
years?
44 years.
That's all. So things could have changed a little bit.
Yeah,
you know what I
just
mean?
a little bit. Yeah.
So,
No, it sounds interesting. Yeah, like I say, New York. I love New York as far as visiting there. I don't know if I'd really want to live there. It's just too many tall buildings everywhere you go. You never see the sun shining.
now I don't have the same appreciation for that, but back then I fell right in, boom.
Oh yeah.
And even though I've never had any kind of urban experience before, it was all, country and, and on the island and it was all very new to me, subways and taxis and, but I fit right in. I just adapted to it. Being young like that, I guess you do that.
Yeah.
I was having a good time.
Yeah.
I had a good paying job.
Good paying job, and you had all those nice little Rockettes to go date.
Yeah, I did a lot of that.
Yeah, well, you're in that age group. That's what you do. So,
Yep.
so you got there after I had been there, but I was only there for like 4 days, just doing a
was in
school
78.
tour. We did a tour. Yeah, we were there in '78. So
That's the format they had. They used to do a little. Did you see the Rockettes at the time?
no, they didn't have that. It was just
They were about ready to close then it must have been because they used to do the format of a little Rockette thing went along with the movie they'd show. They were showing, and that would be.
They just showed the movie because it was a school tour bus, school tour basically, and all these tours went in there, and they showed showed the movie, and then we would go someplace else, and we saw. That was the year that Saturday Night Fever came out, and we went and saw Saturday Night Fever in New York. They made a big point of that, and I look back on that movie and I go, "What a pile of crap that movie was." Yeah. It was enjoyable though.
Look how popular it was, though.
Yeah, it was huge back then.
Yeah,
But it was
disco days,
now you look at it like, oh my heavens,
Let me tell you.
what a piece of garbage that movie was. So, anyways, you got to get around a little bit on the Broadway side of it. Though you need to work the shows because like you say, it's like being here in
Could've
Vegas.
went on tour with Diana Ross, and I got hired on, and we were doing pre-production at Radio City, and I bowed out because she was just somebody that I didn't want to work around. I seen her come in and just lay into her musicians. I mean, it was like, and I had all her other people that had been with her a while were telling me already in my ear about how she is,
Yeah, Yeah, I heard she could be very difficult.
Yeah, well, I didn't need any part of that.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, I mean, I wanted to go on the road and try that, but it wasn't worth that, you know, because I seen her come in just, you got here. I mean, just rude as can be, you know what I mean? And that was enough for me.
That's just too bad. It's just
Yeah.
like, why? You know, but anyways, they are who they are. Some of them are awesome. Some of them are a little temperamental. You know, it's the luck of the draw and all that stuff. But
I hate the truth.
the bigger chunk I've been around, I'd say about 90% to 95 are probably have been great to work around. You know, there's always that few people. Big deal. It is what it is. So anyway, so we'll wrap up your New York stuff, and then you're
Down to Florida.
down to Florida.
Worked down there for a while, you know, for a year, about a year. And then I got a job with a contractor and worked in Texas for this general contractor. Was making great money and stuff like that, but me and my wife decided we didn't want to be around Texas and Texan, you know, so I moved to California. It was me and my stepdaughter and my wife, and
We're in California.
L.A., you know,
In the LA
West
area?
Covina and stuff, Pasadena. I got a job working for, believe it or not, for Loral EOS. It's they do lasers for general. They had, you know, all the government contracts, stuff like that. They, you know, have the laser games with the soldiers would have all these things on that
Yeah.
would detect them, and you know, they had stuff for cannons and
Like laser tag thing
exactly.
and all that stuff, yeah.
They were producing that stuff, you know. And I got hired in they transferred me to Pasadena to work in the R&D department. I just did the shipping and stuff like that and receiving stuff there. And it was pretty interesting, that place was. You know, they did all the shuttle, the stuff for the shuttle, and they were worked on, you know. And when the shuttle went boom, I don't remember what year that was. That's the year I got laid off. After the shuttle went boom,
85,
they shut down that,
86.
you know, the
86.
space. They shut it down after that when it went, you know, it was slowed it right down to nothing. So I got laid off, and I went on unemployment, you know, moved my family out to the desert. We were out in the desert, Joshua Tree. I used to travel to Palm Springs and Laughlin for work, you know, both places. Whenever I could, whenever I got work either place, and then I got work full time at Laughlin. And that was my first time ever, didn't even realize that we did like conventions and stuff like that kind of work till I was in Palm Springs, you know what I mean? They hired on for that at the hotels there, you know, so I didn't know we even did that. That was the first, you know, but
Was that IA stuff, or was that just
no.
non-IA? Okay.
that was all non-union.
Yeah. I've worked plenty of that myself over the years too. So
While I was here in town, I worked a lot of non-union, you know, for a while until, 95 before I got into the union here. You know, so yeah, then I got in Laughlin, which was a very good experience because they, you know, I learned how to operate a spotlight that's all they did there in the beginning was operate a spotlight. Then, you know, I was there for a few years, and I learned, you know, they stuck me on monitors. It was one of those sink or swim things. We needed a monitor guy last minute. We're doing load in and said, "You're the monitor guy in the show." You know, that's how they taught me, you know. And a guy come up and helped me install the first show. Then after that, I was on my own, no matter, you know. And we did some good names there, you know. A lot of country acts, you know, Willie Whalen, Merle, they all come through there, you know, at least once a year. Tony Orlando. And, you know, I learned to do monitors, you know. I got into sound. I'd never done anything like that before. So I learned how to look spot, lights, of course, and then, you know, sound, mix sound in the monitors, you know, which was fun. Once I knew, you know, it wasn't at first, you know, but I learned, you know.
nice.
Back then it was a whole different.
Which hotel? Which one?
Riverside, at the Riverside, yeah.
okay.
They still got that same showroom there. You know, when you load in, when we loaded the shows in there, we had to come right through the ballet entrance, through there with our all the stuff we pushed up to the stage.
Yeah.
There was no backstage or access to the backstage. We had to come right through there, up an escalator with these things. And right at the top of the escalator was the showroom, okay, the front door to the showroom. So we had to push it down to the stage. and we loaded in like Willie used to come with a baby grand piano. We'd load it on the. I don't know how many times we broke that escalator. Putting that thing on the rails of the
Yeah.
escalator, and it get about halfway and it stopped. And then we were really, But yeah, many times we broke that thing. But that's the only way we could get it loaded in.
Yeah.
The shows, but we had all of them. The guys, they come. We used to spend Thanksgiving. I did a couple Thanksgiving with Willie. Everybody bring in something, and Willie and his whole crew would have Thanksgiving dinner there, in the theater, and some good times. Merle once, I remember once, Merle Haggard ordered another bottle of some kind of whiskey. I can't remember what it was, but anyways, the room service guy came up to and says, "Can you get this back there, backstage to him?" You know what I mean? Because the access back there was a little difficult for those guys. It wasn't common for them to come back there. So yeah, I bring it to him. This is right before showtime. We were like in a half hour already. So I knocked on his door. And I remember he came to the door. And I said, "Oh my God!" It just caught me off guard way because he was slurring his words. It was obvious he was teetotaled. It was obvious.
Yeah, he had
He didn't need this bottle of whiskey. You know what I mean?
he was already there.
And I went back, I gave him his bottle, and I said, I gave him what time we were at, and I went back and told the guys, we're not having a show tonight. Ain't no way in hell he can go on stage. That man went on stage, didn't miss a lick. Those guys, he ain't drunk. They were all looking to see if he ain't drunk. I'm telling you guys, he was slurring his words, and he was sloppy as hell at the door, I till this day, I can't, and didn't miss a lick. Not one thing that I noticed anyways, or anybody else. They thought I was crazy, all the guys. Yeah, I mean, I guess you do that something over and over and over and over again,
You go out there and just do it in your sleep.
That's back then, and he still was an old-timer back then, But yeah, we had all kinds of good acts there. We had a lot of, everything from like Three Dog Night, old acts, people that couldn't sell out the big places, they'd come in there once a year. Tony Orlando, like I said, Smothered Brothers, and the one I hated the most was Gallagher. He'd come way too often. He'd come like twice a year, and I hated it, man.
Just mess.
Yeah, just a mess, stinking. It was stinking, you know what I mean?
Because you can't clean the place up totally, so that stuff starts rotting, all
We
that
did
stuff.
plastic everywhere, it's all over everything.
It's just-
all the
yeah.
curtains and everything had plastic on it, and he was such a to work with. You weren't allowed to look at him or even say anything to him,
One of those guys, huh?
Oh yeah, he used to come in when he's opened his show. It was commonplace. First, he'd wait for just somebody to say one word, heckle him. One word. They wouldn't have to be nice or mean or whatever. That's all they had to start. And he'd go in on them. He had a whole routine that just belittled them, then had security walk them out. Every night, same thing at the very beginning of the show. He just waited for somebody to say something. They should put a warning outside. I always thought, that he was going to be that way.
Yeah.
So that put a bad taste in my mouth about him. So.
They were going to bring him back in to the cabaret. I think, was it when you were out there still working?
I might have wanted to, but I never heard about it when I was over there.
When they were doing those comedy things, they started going in, Doug started doing the comedy out there. They were talking about Gallagher being one of them. I was like, what are you going to do about the mess? Oh, it won't be bad. Yeah, okay. And then Gallagher died. Then he died. And it was like, you guys dodged a bullet on this one,
He
man.
did, man.
Holy crud.
I'm telling you. I even had to go run and grab his groceries. They'd give me a list of stuff. I went to the grocery store and had to get the list of all the stuff that he'd be smashing.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was pretty popular. I know. When I watched him on TV, I was, I thought his act was great. I thought he was real funny and da-da-da. And first time working with him, and find out what kind of person he is, and that put a bad taste in my mouth with him, and ever since I couldn't,
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but some of them are like that. That's
Yes, there is. You run into that.
And it's like, why? You're getting paid to walk around and act crazy on a stage and smash stuff up and get paid big money.
He just had a big head. It seemed like, he thought he was. I guess at one time he was pretty popular.
Well, I remember back when I was in high school, I graduated in '80. His album had come out. And his stuff was funny, but it was when you'd see him on TV, you'd go, okay, I see what he's talking about on that stuff. but still, I don't think he was, so amazingly funny on any of it. But whatever.
On the other end of the spectrum, then you had people like the Smothers Brothers.
Oh, they were awesome.
They were just so kind and, you know what I mean, genuine, and, they treated you well, and respectful. I mean, just night and day, That's all I can say about that.
Yeah,
subject,
and we had them here quite a few times, and they were just, both of them were just nice people.
Just nice people, exactly.
And it just, they were so much fun to have on stage, and Tommy's just crazy. He is so much fun to be around. Dick has to always play this straight, and stuff like that, and Tommy just gets to go out and be crazy and have fun, and but people don't realize it was Tommy who comes up with all those routines and stuff like that. He was the comedy guy behind all that. So, it's like Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. Jerry who acted, lady. Jerry was one that came up with all the skits and the slapstick and all that. So. Yeah, it's an interesting business that we're in. Anything else in Laughlin what were some of your favorite shows? I mean, you got to work, like you say, 3 Dog Night and a couple of those.
All the country guys, Willie Whalen, David Allen Coe, and
You got to do all the legends, man.
yeah, they all came there. I'm telling you, they had good bookings there, which is great. As I was going show after show after show, and we had even a couple of production shows. We had legends come down there, from Vegas. We did that show there. That's where I met Trent Carlini.
Oh, okay.
That's where I met him.
He was in Legends down there. Okay,
Yep,
gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
and what else? We even had an ice rink we put on that little stage. We put an ice rink on that little stage, and we had a show there. Those guys, that crew, the cast, was just crazy. They were a lot of fun. I remember. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that cast. Going out on the river right there, and we'd go out on the boats and barbecue. They were a lot of fun. While they were there. But yeah, an ice rink we put on that. It's a little tiny stage. I don't know what the dimensions are, but it's it's small.
Was it 30 feet?
It's small.
30 feet wide, 40?
It couldn't be more than 30.
Oh, okay.
It was small.
Yeah.
Okay. But they would get going on that little, as small as it was.
They could do their thing.
Yeah. I couldn't believe they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, doing the ice stuff, man. Whew. Yeah, that was a job in itself. Just putting it in, making sure that it was always ice, and had to keep it taken care of, and then when it's all done, busting it up and getting it out of there.
I used to do that at the Thomas Mack when I worked at Thomas Mack when I first came to Vegas.
Okay.
I did the changeovers from the basketball court to the hockey, the ice. Yeah, and work at Spotlight on ice shows. Oh my gosh, that's tough. That's tough. That's a tough gig there. You're trying to follow people on the ice. Yeah,
That's moving.
yeah.
You got to be a pretty good spot up on that
Yep.
stuff. It's not. Let's break you in on Spotlight and do it. No,
I was pretty good on Spotlight by then. I'd done a lot of hours before that. And I was teaching people how to work the Spotlight. By that time.
Yeah.
And but yeah, when the first time I did a night show, it was at the Thomas Mack in an arena like that. That was different. The throw was so much farther, and yeah, that's something new.
Yeah. Well, TJ, that brings us to the end of episode number 2 with you. See, I told you these things cook by really nicely.
Pretty fast.
Yeah. And when we come back, we'll go to episode 3. We'll get to Vegas. We'll finally get you here in Vegas. How's that?
Okay.
So, until then, Talbot, take it away.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
This is, but how interesting it.